Okay, so this is a presentation on why I really need to get a girlfriend. Okay, I'm just kidding. It's not really a presentation on why I need to get a girlfriend, but kind of like why we all need friends in general. So, but this is a presentation on why I'm going to present facts about interpersonal relationships and how they affect our daily lives. So you may be asking, what are interpersonal relationships? In interpersonal relationships, two participants are interdependent, where the behavior of each affects the outcome of the other, as described by psychology.iresearchnet.com. Individuals form many different kinds of relationships with people, some of which are intimate and close, for example, like how I said girlfriend in the beginning, which would be an intimate interpersonal relationship, or those that we share with our parents or other close friends. The close relationship is also defined to be one that is strong, frequent, and with diverse interdependence that lasts over a considerable period of time. But we also form interpersonal relationships that aren't that intimate or close, such are, for example, neighbor or someone that you, like it sounds, are not that close with. The website that I was looking for also used teachers as an example of a not close interpersonal relationship, but I thought that was like not really true. Maybe, I don't know, like I'm just a nerd and I try to form strong interpersonal relationships with teachers, and I thought, Mr. Maple would be a good example of that. Okay, so what research has been done about interpersonal relationships? So around the 1960s, the initial research done by sociologists focused around the attraction process of relationships. Mainly the stranger meeting some other stranger for the very first time, rather than focusing on the resulting relationship due to the attraction. For example, the bogus stranger paradigm by Byrne, done in 1971, asked respondents, typically young college students, to rate how much they were attracted to another person after being presented with minimal information about this person. In these paradigms, respondents were actually participating in the experiment where the information presented was actually manipulated by the researchers, and the other persons were typically hypothetical and not real. Researchers took a new approach during the 80s, and in the 80s researchers turned their attention to the more intense sentiments and phenomenon that occurred during the interpersonal relationships rather than the attraction process, and to the social context of various kinds of specific relationships. The majority of research started to focus on the quality of these interpersonal relationships and its links to processes inside, for example, depression, physical health, and other things like work satisfaction, financial strain, and other things outside of mental health. So you might be asking the question arise, why should we really care about interpersonal relationships? I mean, people can be stupid and mean, like, who wants to be with them? And this is what my presentation is about, is why we should care and form these many different interpersonal relationships in our lives. So while it is true that not every interpersonal relationship might not be good, like there's unhealthy relationships and there are those that are healthy, it is important that we have these interactions daily. It is also important to consider these interpersonal relationships and evaluate them as you form them continuously with almost every person that you meet. So I think it's pretty common that everyone wants some alone time, and in fact it is important that we in some form get some time just to ourselves. A stat from psychalive.org says that roughly 50% of the population can be categorized as introverts, meaning that they get the most value in life out of time spent on their own. I would categorize myself as like a weird mixture between like an introvert who prefers time alone and sometimes avoids large groups, which I tend to do and prefer alone times because like I feel sometimes shy around like large groups where I don't know anyone, but I also exhibit the quality of an extrovert that finds energy from interactions with like other groups or like friends. But on to the perks of having some time just to yourself. To start, it allows your brain to recharge. And a quote by Dr. Sherry Borge Carter says, "Being by yourself with no distractions gives you the chance to clear your mind, focus, and to think more clearly. It's an opportunity to revitalize your mind and body at the same time." Being alone also increases productivity. Small interruptions from coworkers or family members can disrupt our trains of thought and make it difficult to get back into a project. Even the ping of a text message or an email notification can be somewhat troubling. So, another perk of being alone is that creativity tends to flourish in solitude, which I think is kind of a iffy one because everybody has their different ways that they become creative. And studies are now showing that people are actually more likely to come up with their best ideas alone rather during group brainstorming sessions. So the last pro of solitude, or kind of being alone, is that it strengthens our relationships with others. Time alone allows us to appreciate our time with others more rather than taking it for granted or feeling overwhelmed by it. Alone time can help us understand others better also. And it also said that introverts tend to have high levels of both empathy and self-awareness, two qualities that contribute to healthy relationships with others. So now moving on to loneliness. This is the con to too much alone time, and this comes in the form of loneliness. So the University of Chicago Medicine says that loneliness is a state of mind characterized by a dissociation between what an individual wants or expects from relationships and what is the individual experiences actually. A shocking thing that we may not consider is that loneliness doesn't simply come from the lack of physical contact. People can actually feel lonely within their marriage, at work with other people, or even at home. So 1 in 3 people in America is affected by loneliness, and 1 in 12 is affected severely. Loneliness is a universal condition that makes a person irritable, self-centered, depressed, and is associated with a 26% increase in the odds of premature mortality. And it's not only mental issues that can arise. There's also physical issues such as cardiovascular disease, diminished sleep quality, increased inflammation, and decreased viral immunity. So what can you do if you feel lonely? Stay connected, make a daily effort to express gratitude, do something helpful or nice for others without expecting anything in return, collaborate with others and work together in harmony, volunteer to help people in need, choose to engage with people including strangers on different levels and on a broad range of topics, and listen to them. And then finally, share positive views and not negative ones. So now I'm going to explore what happens when you deprive somebody of their interpersonal relationships. So in the 20th century, solitary confinement sentences were short, only being a couple days or to weeks at a time at the longest. However, in the past 20 years, these supermax prisons have become increasingly popular, where inmates can spend 23 to 24 hours locked into small cells, which I have on the PowerPoint. And people can spend time in solitary confinement for up to years at a time, according to Jeffrey Metzner, MD, the clinical professor of psychiatry at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. So there are 2 types of solitary confinement: disciplinary and administrative. With disciplinary, it's kind of a punishment if the inmate breaks rules. He can be put in there for months or weeks or 2 at a time. But with the administrative segregation, used in cases where inmates are viewed as a risk to other inmates or staff, prisoners will be placed in confinement for months or years at a time. Studies on criminals within isolation show elevated rates of various psychological disorders. One of the researchers said that one of the prisoners that was in confinement told him that they were locked up in isolation for so long that they were fearful of their behavior if they were to be around other human beings again. In 2007, researchers at the University of Washington reported that prisoners released directly from Supermax prisons into the community committed crimes sooner than the prisoners who had been transferred from segregation to general prison for several months before being released. So, enough with that sad stuff about not engaging in interpersonal relationships. Time for like the positives of having these interpersonal relationships. So the first pro of being in a healthy relationship is less stress, where being in a committed relationship is linked to less production of cortisol, and that having a partner is a good buffer against stress. The next pro is better healing. Research suggests married people who have undergone heart surgery are 3 times more likely to survive the first 3 months after surgery than single patients, says northwesternmedicine.org. So next is healthy behaviors, and if you're within a healthy relationship, your partner can set like a good lead with overall tone that you want to follow for leading a healthy lifestyle. Also with interpersonal relationships, the healthy ones, comes a sense of purpose. It's natural that we all want to feel needed, and being in a loving relationship, no matter what kind, can give a person a sense of well-being and purpose. The last perk of being in a healthy relationship is having longer overall life. Research suggests that having healthy social relationships makes a bigger impact on avoiding early death than taking blood pressure medication. So today I covered what interpersonal relationships are and research done about them. I also explored solitude, loneliness, and forced solitude and their effects. I also looked at some of the positive effects that stem from having a healthy interpersonal relationship. So while we are still kind of new to the Gainesville area in college, it is important that we keep in mind the interpersonal relationships that we had, as well as form new ones today. So thank you.